Can you share your opinion on why the casting choices/priorities changed compared to 15 plus years ago, where there were a lot more unknown and fresh faces on pilots? Well, I can only speak from my experience, but here goes. So casting for a pilot is always going to be a little different from general casting on a show that's up and running because the stakes are higher. You're setting the cast for the entire run of the series. So more people, studio executives, network executives, more people are going to weigh in on this process. But I'm really going to speak about general casting because I think that affects more people. Okay. So back in the 1990s when I broke in, the writers would write a script. They'd give that script to the casting director. The casting director would hold auditions. And they'd bring in a bunch of actors, they'd give notes and adjustments. Then the casting director would bring the best 5 or 10 to producers. Now, producers are actually just high-level writers. Then the producers, we would have another audition with all the actors, and we would give notes and adjustments. We'd say, oh, can you start the scene a little more frantic? And then we'd see how they take direction. And that's really important because throughout the production, the script's going to change and you're going to want to make sure this actor knows how to take direction well. So that's a very important measure. And then based on that, we, the writers, would cast the role, okay? Pretty easy. Then came technology. Technology, always effing things up. So with technology, the casting director would no longer have to hold casting sessions with the producers. Instead, they would just submit the actors on tape. And it's not tape, by the way, it's digital. They just call it tape. Anyway, so the advantage was we could watch these auditions whenever we wanted, at night, at home, on the fly, on the set, whatever. The disadvantage was we weren't allowed to give notes. We couldn't give notes because it wasn't live, and therefore it was a lot harder to judge. Then technology advanced even more, where the actors were now not going to the casting director's office for auditions. Instead, they would self-tape at home. And the studios loved this. By the way, this wasn't our idea. This was the studio's idea. It was everyone's idea but mine, I can promise you that. So now the actors would have to buy camera equipment and lights. That was an expense. And now the studios didn't have to pay, they didn't need that kind of overhead. It was a cost-cutting measure on their end. Actors liked this for some purposes. One, they wouldn't have to drive across town for an hour and a half to audition. They wouldn't have to take off from work. They could just do this on their own time at home, which is a lot more convenient. The downside is they're not getting any kind of feedback from the casting director or the producers. And they're often acting against themselves, which is kind of hard to do. No, it's very hard to do. So there's pluses and minuses. Then things got worse. You like how I made this dramatic by sitting into the shot? I'm Hitchcock over here. Oh my God, the tension. At some point, when everything went online, these casting sessions went online, now the studio executives could easily watch a casting session. In the past, they would have had to drive across town in traffic to sit on a session. They wouldn't have done that. But when everything's online, sure, now they have an opinion on waiter number 2. Waiter number 2 has one line. What can I get you? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not convinced. You realize waiter number 2 is actually a waiter in real life? Whatever. And so they're going to have an opinion on it. In the past, these creative decisions were made by the people who created the part. We, the writers, know what the character should be doing here. How we want to portray this character, what actor or actress would do it best. Now, the studio executives, they might be some 25-year-olds with no experience, but they are acting as proxy to the studio, and they're going to have an opinion, and they are paying for it in their defense. They are paying for it, so they're going to want to have an opinion. And there's some discussion, but at the end of the day, when the boss wants this person, what are you going to do? How many fights are you going to fight? What do I do about it? What do I recommend you guys do about it? I talk about this during my free webinars. You can go here to sign up, or occasionally. I change subjects, so maybe I'll talk about it in the future. Maybe I won't. Maybe you missed it. But in my opinion, you can swim against that current. You can fight against that current. You'll die exhausted, or you could ride that wave and use it to your advantage. For more, what it's like to be a TV writer, keep following me here at Michael Jamin Writer. Act break.